Before I post the recording in for today, there was one other thing I mentioned in today's live session that I wanted to share with you. I didn't want to take up time on the session today, but that's the idea of component libraries, not content libraries as I referred to them. That's something entirely different. So this concept has come about from let's go into just a random app here. It's come about from a concept within any Power App where you can create a reusable component. And I'll show you what that looks like now when this loads. And the idea is, rather than, for example, creating a header with a rectangle and a burger menu and an icon and a label that might contain some user information, rather than creating those separately, what you can do is create a component which encapsulates all of those things. And using this tab here, here's one I made earlier. This is a component with a few items on it. I can save that effectively as a component in that tab. And what I can then do is I can bring those items into the main flow of my app, into the app's menu here, into the tree view. And if I want to insert something, I can just simply, in fact, I'll show you a couple of ways. You can insert a custom and you'll get these options here. Now, this is bringing in a component. So, for example, you saw I had an action menu. There you go. All that build work that I've done here once, I can reuse across multiple screens. So I can go to any screen and pull it in. I'm just going to delete that. One thing you might have noticed that I did want to share with you is that component library now is very much thought of as in the context of your app. And you might notice on my screen here, I've got component library updates available. I'm just going to go through this, ignore what I've just done. What Microsoft have now done, and I'll go into the menu in a moment. Things are running very slow today. I do apologize. What they've now done is they have started to release a replacement for this idea that if I had a load of components in this tab, I could export them and import them into different apps. That's fine, that works, but it can be a little bit painful, a bit cumbersome, and you might not want to do that. So they've started to introduce the idea of having a component library which is inbuilt into the Power Apps universe, if you like, that you can simply bring in components from this library rather than import. There's a couple of things to get used to deal with component libraries. The first one, if I go into my settings and I look at upcoming features, so we have in here a whole bunch of things that we can turn on and off. Now, I think it's in here. Let me just double check. Okay, yeah, here we go. So at the minute, I've got export and import components on, and that's that menu you just saw up there in the custom. If I turn it off, you can see here it says component libraries are now the recommended way to reuse. So I've turned that off. What that does is it's gone. Well, what do I do now to get a component? There's a new option open to you. It may be that this is something that is rolling out for some people, so you might not see it immediately, but it's super, super useful. When you're in your apps or you're creating an app, you may notice now I've got my apps list here, but I've also got component libraries. If I click new component library, all it does is it says give it a name. So I've already done that here. I won't go through those steps. But if I go into the experience of what is a component library, again, we have to play some music while this getting things ready happens. Okay. This behaves exactly like your normal Power App Studio, but you'll notice I'm landed on the tab there, the components. That's because the screens in this context are just test screens. When you create a component library, they are not screens that get used elsewhere. It's the components that get used elsewhere. So in the same way as building a screen, you build a new component, you shape it, you theme it, you color it exactly as you would anything else. So here's one I made earlier. You can see I'll have done things like keeping the canvas size to 100, and I've got a rectangle on there, exactly the same as your normal things that you'd have. I've got an icon, but there's something different. So you can save and publish a component library. But before you do, I strongly recommend you get to grips with the concept of why you want to do this. I want to do this because I want to allow a uniform navigation component in any app that I'm ever going to use. To do that, there's a couple of steps I need to take. The first, when you normally interact with a component, you will interact with its properties. You'll put something in its properties. So when I select this burger menu, I would normally navigate to, let's say, the home screen. But you'll notice here that I've changed it. I am going to instruct Power Apps and this component to navigate to the component name, the blue header. When I create it, I'll give it a name. But I want to navigate to this .burger menu thing. What is that thing? Well, there is something else to get to grips with component libraries, and that is the idea of a custom property. You have these in components as they are now, but you're going to use these in your component libraries a lot more. You can have lots of properties associated to one of these components. Let's just show you. So you can give them a name, a display name as well, and a description, but there are input and outputs. As you would expect, an input expects something to be given to it, and an output will deliver something back to the app that it sits in. And there are types. I won't go into these because that'll take ages, but the most important one for navigation is there is a screen type of input property. And you can see here, if I just click on this, I have a burger menu. I've called it burger menu, so I know what it is. It's an input, and it expects some screen behavior to take place. So it takes a little while to get used to. Experiment with it if you wish, but I'll just show you how that works. So you'll notice there that I've tied the onSelect to that property. Whatever this component receives in that input property, something that's given to it, it's going to navigate to. So let's just show you how to use that. I will save and publish. And as you go through, as you experiment, whenever you update a component and publish a new version, the apps that use it, so long as you open them, will remind you, as you saw at the very start of this, that, oh, there's something a bit different here. Do you want me to grab it for you? So how do I use that in an app? Let's just go and show you. Might make more sense when I actually implement it into an app. So let's go into my apps. Let's go back into that inventory. Let's go into this one. So rather than worrying about importing, exporting, when this loads up, rather than worrying about importing and exporting components, now our Power Apps, our Canvas apps and other types of apps natively understand that there might be something that they can go and pull in to reuse. So to do that, rather than as you saw earlier where I did the add, let's just click on the screen, add, let's go to the insert, the custom, that gets me local components, these things here. I don't want to do that. I want to go and get something from a library. So to do that, you click Insert, and you'll notice down the bottom, Get More Components. What this does is it reads any component libraries that are shared with you. That you have to publish and share that component library to make sure that anyone else who wants to use it can use it. If it's just for you, you don't have to do a great deal. But I want to pull in a navigation header, whatever these are updated components, and import them. Again, brief pause. The way to use them now is if you look down here, you've got this library components, and I can simply pull, I think it was the blue header we were playing with, pull it across. It's actually that there. And it'll pull it into your app, and you can pull it into any screen like you would. So let's just pull a grey submit. So you can see I'm pulling all sorts of things into here. I'll delete them off. But the way that this works, so if you recall, I had that custom property, and when I click on a component, you'll notice on the right-hand side in my properties, I can see that there are some custom properties associated here. The way to use it is to pull down the properties on the left there, and you'll notice it's here. Anything I declare as a property will be accessible. Now, let's just review that, update it. You won't have to do this. It's just me making sure that I've got the right version. The concept here now is that that property is expecting a value to be given to it. And if you remember in the component library, it said navigate to whatever you chuck at me. So if I go in brackets here, let's just go to SCR success, screen success, and spell. Okay, so let's. I didn't need to put it in quotes. Human error. So, talk through the logic there. What I've now done is I said when someone clicks on that custom property of that item on my component, do the thing that it knows it needs to do when you've declared it in the component library, using the value that it's been given. So if you remember, it was navigate to whatever is passed to it. So in this case, if you were to write this out, it would actually say navigate screen success. So I'm pressing down Alt now on my keyboard, and there you go. And that is how you use the custom properties, and that is how you use a component library. Little bit of a whistle stop. If you are interested, very happy to do a quick demo on this and slow all of that down, but I'm mindful I've been blathering on for 11 minutes. So I hope that was useful anyway, and I hope you'll use it, because I find that could be a game changer for building apps super, super quick from a library of components that, for example, Connor and myself have generated.